The ending of this first season of the show certainly had a twist and provided an ending that I didn't expect. Following Owen, a recently qualified lawyer who was working for the CIA, he found himself more in the position of ops on the field as his natural abilities and yearning to get involved came to fruition more and more. However, as the season went on, he landed himself in more and more trouble as his original plan of just getting Max out of jail transformed into a cross-continental CIA mission. So with that, I thought I'd recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this series. So let's get into it. Here is the Recruit ending explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. As we embarked on the ending of the first season, we saw that Max and Owen had left Geneva and were on their way to Germany to meet Dawn following the death of Xander Goy in their hotel room. Max's only desire was to be able to get back to Belarus following the failed attempt of the retrieval of the money from the frozen bank account. The $2 million bounty for the identity of the person Krillis' wife had an affair with would have taken them to around the $10 million mark, which was the level of payment that was required to allow Max to re-enter. After Max managed to convince Dawn that she and Owen had nothing to do with the death of Xander other than giving up his identity, they made a safe passageway to meet with Lev, which would have enabled her to buy her way back into Belarus and return to a somewhat normal life, leaving Owen to be rid of the burden of having to deal with her. However, it all turned sour. Cutting back to the first scene that we saw at the show, it was no longer a flashback and was now the present day, as different forces which contained a familiar woman who we'd been introduced to a couple of times throughout the season appeared. This woman turned out to be Max's daughter, who we believe to be dead, Karolina, as was revealed to us right in the closing moments of the season as she harmed her mother. Just after escaping, Owen walked away from Max as he felt as though his role in the CIA was changing him. He was riddled with anxiety and paranoia, and the recent killing of somebody was playing on his mind too much. So much so that he felt as though he couldn't do it anymore and quit the agency. However, as he was about to reunite with Hannah, the main love interest in the season, he was thrown into a car, kidnapped and tied up, thus revealing to us that Karolina, Max's daughter, was behind it, and she wanted to know why he was working with Max. It sets up a season 2 perfectly based on the cliffhanger of an ending, but for now, let's break down the ending for each individual character. Owen. Owen had a few different issues that were touched upon during the development of his character throughout the show. He lost his father when he was younger, and ultimately ended up going into a different line of work. However, the nature within him meant that he was always destined to be on the front line, as we saw with his case with Max, as it naturally drew him there, putting his life at risk multiple times. He had a turbulent relationship with his mother, something we didn't really touch on that much. But I feel it's definitely being saved to have some development in the next season. And we also saw him still having strong feelings for his ex-girlfriend turned roommate, Hannah. At his core, Owen is a good person and only wanted to do his best. Hence why we saw him going above and beyond in his role in his job. And also sticking by Max even when he didn't want to, because he empathized with her, losing all of her family and feeling a little bit lost. I think as the show progresses over the course of a couple of seasons, I believe we will eventually see Owen take up a role as an ops specialist, because we didn't really see him act as a lawyer at all during his time in the show. With him quitting and hoping to admit his true feelings for Hannah, it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case for a while due to Max's daughter Karolina taking him. I think he's going to make it out alive, because well, he has to. Otherwise the show can't really progress, but I feel as though he's about to open up a completely different can of worms. Max. As somebody who held information and identities on field agents outside of the US, we witnessed the first half of the season being focused on Max blackmailing the OGC in order to get herself out of prison. And we then spent the second half of the season watching her aim to get herself back to Belarus to go back to the life that she used to have. We were made to believe that Max and Dawn had never met before, but in reality, Dawn was the individual who recruited her into being an informant for the CIA 12 years prior to the present day in the show. This was something that was never really touched on, but I'm hoping it will be in season 2. At the end of the season, we saw that Max was taken in a car in Prague and she was alongside Owen. Her last words that were spoken were her daughter's name as she walked into the room, and then she proceeded to be harmed by her. I do wonder if she's going to survive or not, but judging by the way that it was done, one can only assume that she may not be returning. With the watch that she gave Owen partway through the season, it also seemed to apply that she had her own plans in mind, as she made sure that it had GPS tracking ability. I enjoyed Max's arc, and I do hope that she does manage to survive, meaning that we get to see more of her in the next season of the show. Dawn. Dawn was a really interesting character. She made out like she was in the dark for a lot of it, and it felt as though she could be slightly corrupt, with us finding out that she was essentially creating ghost assets, meaning she was pocketing the funding that was going towards them. We found out that she wasn't as legit as she made herself out to be. She's definitely got a dark past that we're yet to really learn about, but I do hope that we get to see more of it when the show does return. I imagine her arrival at the scene where Max was taken is going to spark her into shock mode and she'll report back to Nyland. Hannah. Hannah was the main love interest in the show, and we saw that despite the fact that she was seeing somebody else, a guy called Jeff, she still cared a lot for Owen, to the point where she got a flight out to Geneva to ensure that he was okay. With her receiving a text about Owen going to Prague from an anonymous number, it made me think that it could have potentially been Karolina, as she did spot her from a distance at the end of episode 7. And if there's anything we know about the people in that line of work, they do their homework and research anybody that's involved with the person that they have their eyes on. I thought something bad was going to happen to her. However, with Owen actually being the one that was taken, I do wonder if she's going to be put at risk due to association with him whilst out in Prague. The romance will definitely blossom more in season 2 if the show does get the green light to continue. I thought this show was pretty good. I think it definitely took a couple of episodes to find its rhythm, but by the end of the first 4 episodes I think it really found its place and the tone felt right. Owen's relationships with individuals are what's at the heart of this show, and his interactions are what ultimately allowed this character to shine. Like he said in the show, he's a people person. I wasn't a huge fan of the way that Lester and Violet were so against Owen. I found that to be a little over the top and unnatural for the situations that they were in, especially when his life was being put at risk. So I do hope that those two relationships change when the new season does come around. I think Owen is definitely going to survive the ordeal that he's found himself in, and he's going to be the puppet for another person in the second season of the show, whilst we'll see him still trying to balance what he's actually supposed to be doing for the CIA. So, there you have it, the Recruit ending explained. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this first season? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.